They say a wife's worst nightmare is watching her husband's love slip away. For Rosalie Pierce, that nightmare became a twisted fairy tale of greed, betrayal, and heartbreak. She once lived like a queen in a penthouse overlooking the sparkling city skyline, married to millionaire mogul Christopher Pierce. Yet, in the blink of an eye, Rosalie found herself pregnant, abandoned, and evicted by a mistress determined to claim every ounce of power in Christopher's life. What Vanessa Moretti didn't realize, however, was that Rosalie's greatest strength lay in her resilience. This is the story of how the scorned wife fought back and bought the entire building the following week. Rosalie Morrison grew up in a small, unremarkable town in southern Maine. Her parents, both school teachers, instilled in her a determination to succeed. Even as a teenager, she believed in true love and big dreams. She was driven, bright, and empathic, traits that would eventually win the heart of a rising business mogul. Christopher Pierce was that man, tall, well-groomed, with an infectious charm that influenced everyone around him. He was older than Rosalie by nearly 10 years, already building a reputation for himself in the real estate sector. Their worlds first collided at a charity event in Boston when Rosalie was a fresh college graduate, eager to find her place in the world. It was an unassuming December night. The charity function meant to raise funds for underprivileged youth. Rosalie had volunteered to help coordinate the gala, while Christopher was an honored guest due to his ongoing support of children's education projects. With her arms full of gift baskets, Rosalie nearly tripped over an extension cord. Christopher happened to be stepping out from behind a large decorative centerpiece at that exact moment, catching her before she fell. Their eyes met, and in that brief instant, the party's bustling atmosphere faded into a pleasant, muted hum. From that moment, their love story began. They chatted into the early hours of the morning at the fundraiser. Over the next few months, Christopher whisked Rosalie off on lavish trips and introduced her to the circles of the affluent, black-tie dinners, insider real estate conferences, glamorous beach getaways. Yet, behind the glitter, Rosalie would soon discover that the world Christopher inhabited was cutthroat, rife with hidden agendas and relentless power plays. For a time, she was too much in love to notice. In her eyes, Christopher was her Prince Charming, someone who used his fortunes to help people, even forging connections with philanthropic icons like Warren Buffett and Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank. Rosalie felt proud that Christopher cared so deeply for giving back. The illusions of unconditional love, breathtaking romance, and financial security wove themselves into a tapestry of domestic bliss. After a whirlwind year of courtship, they were married in a grand ceremony in the south of France. Close friends, family, and business associates flew in to witness Christopher and Rosalie exchange vows. The event was on par with a celebrity wedding. Rosalie believed wholeheartedly that she had found her forever partner. Together, they planned to create a legacy of love and compassion. Yet, even during the honeymoon phase, small red flags began to wave. Christopher's phone was constantly buzzing, urgent messages from business associates, suspicious calls in the middle of the night. Sometimes, he'd disappear into another room for hours. When Rosalie would timidly ask if everything was all right, Christopher would laugh it off and say, "Real estate never sleeps, darling." Though slightly uneasy, Rosalie convinced herself that he was simply under a lot of pressure, trying to close multi-million-dollar deals. Their life post-honeymoon was an avalanche of activity. Christopher was launching an international expansion of his property development firm, Pierce & Company. Rosalie, forever supportive, left her modest nonprofit job to become a full-time partner in her husband's philanthropic efforts. She believed wholeheartedly in the synergy of their relationship, that they could do more good together than they could alone. In the next 2 years, Rosalie and Christopher ascended to the pinnacle of success, hosting charity galas, buying vacation homes, and mingling with the upper echelons of society. Every fairy tale, however, holds its quiet storm. By the time Rosalie first realized she was pregnant, fissures were already forming in the foundation of their marriage. The day Rosalie found out she was expecting was meant to be a highlight of their marriage. She stood in the bathroom, trembling with disbelief, a positive pregnancy test in hand. Carefully, she broke the news to Christopher. To her relief, he beamed with excitement, at least initially. For a fleeting moment, Rosalie felt like everything would be perfect, But Christopher's enthusiasm waned sooner than she expected. He was often stuck in meetings, traveling to London on short notice, or courting new investors in Dubai for days at a time. Rosalie tried to be understanding. Pierce and Company was in the midst of landing a series of crucial property development contracts. If those succeeded, Christopher's net worth would skyrocket, and his philanthropic dreams might become reality on a much larger scale. She wanted to be proud of him, but a quiet desperation nestled in her heart. She needed him more than ever now that she was pregnant. The day of her first ultrasound, Christopher canceled last minute, sending his personal assistant to fetch the black SUV from the hospital parking lot. Rosalie fought tears as the doctor confirmed her baby was healthy. She could only imagine how joyous that moment might have been if Christopher had been seated beside her, holding her hand. More suspicious signs appeared. Cryptic text messages from unknown senders popping up on Christopher's phone, the lingering scent of an unfamiliar perfume on his suits, and late-night glimpses of him stepping into the hallway for hushed phone calls. One evening, Rosalie confronted him in their penthouse living room. She demanded answers about his repeated absences. "I feel like I'm losing you, Chris," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Am I crazy to think there might be someone else?" Christopher's response was dismissive, alternating between anger and nonchalance. "Rosalie, you know me better than that. Business deals get complicated, and you're imagining things. I'm under immense stress. Show me some understanding." That night, Christopher slept in the guest room. When Rosalie woke the next morning, he was gone. Little did she know, there was indeed another woman lurking in the shadows of their marriage. Someone cunning, ruthless, and determined to have Christopher all to herself. Vanessa Moretti was a name whispered in business circles, though rarely in polite company. She'd appeared as Christopher's strategic consultant, claiming to be an expert in international property acquisitions. She was an elegant brunette with sharp cheekbones, commanding the attention of any room she entered. Unlike Rosalie, who radiated warmth and compassion, Vanessa's energy was calculating, more reminiscent of a black widow spider weaving her web. In reality, Vanessa had risen through unscrupulous tactics, forging relationships with powerful men and leveraging them to secure her position. She was well known for her unrelenting ambition. Once she identified a target, she wouldn't let go until she extracted every ounce of advantage. She had a knack for exploiting insecurities, forging alliances in secret, and then leaving her benefactors in ruins once she acquired what she wanted. Christopher's job made him an easy target. He was wealthy, well-connected, and evidently frustrated in his personal life. Their affair began discreetly in luxurious hotel suites during business trips. Vanessa soothed Christopher's insecurities, telling him that Rosalie would never understand the complexities of high-stakes deals and corporate politics. She painted Rosalie as a naive small-town girl, out of her depth, particularly in Christopher's new global expansion. Flattered by Vanessa's attentions and enticed by her worldly knowledge, Christopher fell deeper into her clutches. Soon, Vanessa arranged to position herself in the Pierce and Company hierarchy. She convinced Christopher he needed her not just as a consultant, but also as the official director of global development. With full authority over critical decisions, she quickly ingratiated herself with Christopher's closest allies, including bankers, brokers, and even some board members at Pierce and Company. She created her own power base under Christopher's nose. Rosalie, meanwhile, found small clues that fueled her suspicions. She saw an email from Vanessa M. with heart emojis in the subject line. She noticed how Christopher's typically stoic personal assistant seemed to crumble into awkward silence whenever Vanessa's name came up. Desperate for the truth, Rosalie even reached out to an old friend, an IT specialist, who discreetly helped her access certain company records. There, she discovered an unusual pattern of expense reports under the heading Corporate Hospitality, always authorized by Christopher, but often used by Vanessa. 5-star dinner bills, luxury spa trips, some in cities where Christopher was supposedly on business trips alone. Just as Rosalie was preparing how to confront her husband more forcefully, tragedy struck her father. Daniel Morrison suffered a massive heart attack back home in Maine. Concerned for her father's health, she rushed back for a week to help her mother with the aftermath. In that emotionally turbulent time, Rosalie tried to hold on to hope that Christopher would at least show up for her, but he never came to Maine. Instead, he sent flowers with a short note. I'm sorry to hear about your father. Business in Dubai is urgent. Love you, Chris. That was it. Grief, frustration, and suspicion mingled, forging a steely determination within Rosalie. She resolved that once her father was out of danger, she would go back and insist on the truth from Christopher. Enough was enough. The day Rosalie returned to their marital home, a penthouse on the 25th floor of a newly built luxury skyscraper, remains etched in her memory as the day her life came crashing down. She was 5 months pregnant, exhausted from traveling, and anxious about her father's recovery. A stony-faced concierge greeted her in the lobby, refusing to let her through without clearance. Confused, Rosalie explained that she was Mrs. Pierce, the owner of the penthouse. The concierge offered only a weak smile and directed her to the building manager's office. There, to her horror, she found Vanessa Moretti, seated behind a gleaming marble desk, tapping away on a laptop. Vanessa looked up with a smile that could freeze fire. "Rosalie, darling, how unexpected," she purred, as if speaking to an old acquaintance who had overstayed her welcome. Rosalie stared, dumbfounded. "What are you doing here? This is my home." Vanessa's lips curled. "I know this is shocking, but Christopher decided that, in the interest of finances and upcoming changes, you should relocate. He asked me to handle the logistics. I'd hate for you to strain yourself in your delicate condition." Shock morphed into outrage. "Handle the logistics?" Rosalie hissed, voice trembling. "This is my home. I'm his wife. If there's a relocation, Chris should have told me himself. Where is he?" Vanessa let out a patronizing sigh and slid a set of documents across the desk. "As you can see, the penthouse lease has been transferred under my name." She emphasized the final words. "Your name is no longer on the occupant list. You need to vacate the property immediately." Rosalie's eyes scanned the documents. Indeed, the apartment, a property originally belonging to Christopher's holding company, had been swiftly transferred into a corporate shell that Vanessa controlled. The date of transfer was just 3 days prior. Her chest tightened. "This is insane. I'm his wife. You can't evict me from my own marital home. Where is Christopher?" Vanessa rose, towering over the desk with an almost triumphant glimmer in her eyes. "He's out of town for business. Deere told me to manage this in his absence. The building management has already been notified. If you resist, security will be called." Rosalie's mind spun. She couldn't believe that Christopher would authorize such cruelty, especially toward his pregnant wife, unless he was under the thrall of Vanessa, or perhaps complicit from the start. Summoning every ounce of composure, Rosalie closed her eyes, took a steadying breath, and declared, "I'm calling Christopher. If I can't reach him within the hour, I'm calling my lawyer." Vanessa's response was a disdainful shrug. "Be my guest, but I advise you to leave quietly. There's no use dragging this into a scandal. Christopher's a public figure, remember. You wouldn't want to tarnish his reputation, now would you?" The threat, thinly veiled, struck Rosalie to her core. She fought tears, but they came anyway, hot and furious. She snatched her phone, desperately dialed Christopher's number. No answer. Voicemail. She tried again. Same result. She texted him. "How could you do this? I'm being evicted from our home. Your mistress is behind it. Call me." Silence. With security guards closing in, Rosalie realized she had no immediate recourse. She wouldn't risk a public scene that might land in the tabloids. Heart pounding, she turned on her heel and walked away, tears blurring her vision. She barely heard Vanessa's final parting words, delivered with poison-laced sweetness. "Safe travels, Rosie. I do hope you find something more suitable for your new life." Standing on the sidewalk outside her former home, Rosalie clutched her luggage and tried to steady her breathing. Pregnant and abandoned, she had to think fast. She immediately called her close friend, Helena Carter, who lived across town. Helena, an interior designer with a modest 2-bedroom condo, answered with alarm. "Rose, I've been worried about you. You sounded so frantic in your messages. Are you okay?" That evening, Helena welcomed Rosalie into her condo. Though far less grand than the penthouse, it was warm, cozy, and filled with love, a stark contrast to the cold betrayal Rosalie had just endured. Helena's eyes widened in horror as Rosalie recounted Vanessa's chilling eviction. "That's illegal. This is insane," Helena exclaimed, furious on behalf of her friend. "You need to lawyer up. Sue them. This can't be allowed to stand." However, Rosalie felt overwhelmed and embarrassed. Her father had just survived a heart attack, and she was 5 months pregnant. She couldn't stomach a public legal battle, especially when Christopher was refusing to speak to her. She tried calling his personal assistant, who stammered an apology and mumbled something about Christopher being unreachable. Messages to Christopher's business partners were met with polite deflections. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Vanessa texted Rosalie with more cruelty. "If you need money or help, don't be proud. We can arrange a settlement." A settlement. As if Rosalie was some disposable piece in Christopher's life. For the first time, Rosalie's heartbreak flared into determined anger. She refused to respond to Vanessa's provocations, but she quietly began collecting every piece of evidence. She had bank statements, text messages, proof of her shared finances with Christopher. Days turned into weeks. Helena's condo became Rosalie's temporary refuge. She spent hours poring over legal websites, learning about marital property rights. She discovered a grim truth. The penthouse technically belonged to the Pierce and Company holding company. Christopher, as the controlling shareholder, had the power to reassign it without her explicit consent, especially since the property was purchased before their marriage and never formally transferred to both their names. While she would have a claim in a divorce settlement, that could take months, if not years, to resolve. In the meantime, she was effectively homeless. Rosalie began to suspect that Christopher was deliberately hiding, possibly orchestrating a scenario in which she'd be desperate enough to accept some meager settlement. She was certain Vanessa had a larger scheme in mind, perhaps to isolate Rosalie, cut off her access to finances, and force her into submission. But they had underestimated Rosalie. She had something powerful on her side, her own quiet strengths, her resourcefulness, and unexpected allies. She discovered she still had a personal bank account, one that Christopher had once funded for her philanthropic initiatives. There was a significant sum left there, money Christopher must have overlooked or assumed she wouldn't use for her personal needs. At the urging of Helena, Rosalie reached out to an old mentor, Gregory Farnsworth, a retired real estate attorney who had once admired Rosalie's kind heart and organizational skills during her nonprofit days. Gregory listened in stunned silence as Rosalie explained her predicament. "I can't believe Christopher would do this," Gregory finally said, voice tight with indignation. "You need to fight back. The law might be messy, but you have rights, especially as his wife with a child on the way." Rosalie sighed. "I'm not even sure if I want to remain married to him, but I can't believe he'd let that witch evict me. I need answers. I need closure." Gregory nodded. "You'll get them. I'll help you in every way I can. First, we need to figure out how to protect your finances and your share of any joint holdings. Then, we'll see about confronting them on your eviction." Before Rosalie could muster a response, Helena returned from a short trip to the store, brandishing a folded newspaper. She pointed to the headlines. "Pierce and Company announces new luxury building deal." The article mentioned how Christopher Pierce's firm had just acquired a downtown property with plans to convert it into high-end luxury apartments. The piece showcased a photo of Christopher, and standing confidently beside him, Vanessa Moretti. Rosalie's heartbeat hammered against her chest. Christopher, the father of her unborn child, had not just abandoned her, but was openly flaunting his mistress in the business world. Not a single mention of Rosalie or her pregnancy. A wash of humiliation spread through her, but also a flicker of defiance. She set her jaw. If Christopher and Vanessa thought she would remain quietly in the shadows, they were gravely mistaken. In the days that followed, Rosalie launched her own small investigation. She reached out to acquaintances still on staff at Pierce and Company. She learned that Christopher's board of directors was uneasy about how public this affair was becoming. They worried about a scandal affecting their stock value, especially if Rosalie took legal action. Meanwhile, Rosalie discovered a peculiar detail in the newly announced property's financial structure. The building's official ownership was still under negotiation. Pierce and Company had locked down a preliminary deal, but a final acquisition hadn't been completed. That property was, ironically, the same building in which Rosalie had once hoped to open a new charity resource center for single mothers. She'd even accompanied Christopher on a site tour months ago. Tucked away in her inbox was a trove of inside knowledge about that building, the buyer's timeline, the renovation budget, the city permits. She had compiled it long ago when she was assisting Christopher with philanthropic expansions, back when they shared dreams of building community spaces. Armed with this knowledge and the discreet support of Gregory Farnsworth, Rosalie realized an extraordinary possibility. If she leveraged her personal bank account and secured some additional funding, she might be able to outmaneuver Christopher's firm and purchase the building herself. It sounded insane. Pierce and Company had enormous capital, but Rosalie had an advantage, thanks to Christopher's neglect and Vanessa's arrogance. Rosalie was privy to details about the property that no one else outside Pierce and Company had. She knew exactly how precarious the owner's finances were and how eager they were to sell. Quickly and quietly, Gregory's eyes widened when Rosalie presented the plan. "This is bold," he said. "You're going head-to-head with Christopher's company. They'll fight you hard." Rosalie's gaze steeled. "He evicted me, Greg. He's flaunting that mistress. I'm carrying his child, and he hasn't bothered to reach out. If Christopher wants war, I'll give him war." The biggest obstacle was capital. Though Rosalie had a not insignificant amount in her personal account, it was nowhere near enough to purchase a multi-million-dollar property. She needed backers. That's when she remembered an old contact, Rachel Henderson, a philanthropic investor who had once partnered with Rosalie on a community center initiative. Rachel had deep pockets, a passion for women's empowerment, and a personal dislike of corporate bullies. Rosalie arranged a private meeting with Rachel at a quiet bistro. Nervous but resolute, she laid out the entire story, leaving out none of the humiliating details. She concluded with her plan. "I want to buy this building, rebrand it as safe, affordable luxury apartments for single mothers and families who need a fresh start. Think about it: modern living spaces, on-site daycare, a supportive community. We can even have the resource center I once dreamed of. But to do this, I need major funding, and I need to move fast." Rachel pressed her lips in thought. "You're telling me you want to outbid Pierce and Company for this property, use it to do good, and stick it to your soon-to-be ex-husband?" Rosalie swallowed hard. "Essentially, yes." Rachel chuckled, though her eyes shone with admiration. "Count me in. I've always liked you, Rosalie. You've got a good heart, and between you and me, it might be quite satisfying to see a real-life David and Goliath story. Let's discuss the terms." After a series of negotiations and the involvement of a few more discreet investors Rachel knew from her network, Rosalie was thrilled to discover they could indeed pull together a competitive offer. It would require nearly every last bit of capital Rosalie and Rachel could access, but if successful, it would be a brilliant coup with a powerful moral victory behind it. While Rosalie prepared her bid, she received an unexpected phone call from John Claflin, a soft-spoken financial advisor at Pierce & Company. He was one of Christopher's oldest employees, someone Rosalie remembered as kind-hearted. John apologized profusely for how Rosalie had been treated. "I'm taking a huge risk calling you," he said, voice hushed. "But I can't stand by and watch Christopher be manipulated by Vanessa. She's pushing for more expansions, reckless ones in my opinion, and ignoring the philanthropic commitments we once made. I'm so sorry for what happened to you." Tears of gratitude welled in Rosalie's eyes. "It's not your fault, John, but I appreciate you reaching out." He cleared his throat. "Listen, I might have information that could help you. Our official final offer on that building is set to be submitted on Monday. Vanessa thinks we have an exclusive negotiation window, but ironically, the owners are upset with some last-minute demands from Pierce & Company. They might be open to a better deal if it surfaces. If you can come up with a strong enough bid, you could sneak in at the last second and snatch it." Rosalie's heart soared. Here was proof that her plan might actually work. "Thank you, John. You have no idea how much this means to me." He paused. "Just be careful. Vanessa's dangerous. And Christopher, he's not himself. He might try to retaliate if he feels cornered." Rosalie smiled through her anxiety. "I'll be careful. Thank you." Thus, with John's inside tips, Gregory's legal guidance, Rachel's network of investors, and Rosalie's own unwavering resolve, she orchestrated a stunning counteroffer. She aimed to submit it to the building's owners late Sunday, just hours before Pierce & Company's final negotiations. It was a gamble, one that could fail if the owners decided to stick with the devil they knew. But Rosalie couldn't back down now. This was her chance to reclaim her dignity, her place in the world, and secure a future for her unborn child. The sky above New York was bleak with snow clouds as Rosalie stood by the window of Helena's apartment, her breath fogging the glass. She was nearly 6 months pregnant now, her body heavier, her steps slower, but her mind sharper than ever. The building that once symbolized everything she'd lost was now within reach. Today was the day she would fight to claim it, not for revenge, but for her child and for herself. At 10 a.m., wrapped in a cream wool coat and with a fire in her chest, Rosalie stepped into a chauffeured car beside Rachel Henderson, the philanthropic investor who had become not only her backer, but her believer. In the seat behind them, Gregory Farnsworth, her legal advisor, silently read through the last of the finalized documents. His steady presence calmed her, anchoring her resolve. Their destination, a boutique hotel downtown where the building's current owners, the Ramirez family, were scheduled to meet for final negotiation. Pierce and Company had assumed they would close the deal on Monday. It was Sunday. This was Rosalie's last chance to strike. The hotel's private conference room had none of the grandeur of a corporate boardroom, but for Rosalie, it might as well have been a battlefield. Her heart thudded with every step toward the table. She greeted Carlos Ramirez and his partners with warmth, sincerity, and no trace of desperation. She had learned the hard way. Power was not in how loudly you entered a room, but in how calmly you claimed your place in it. She began her pitch. No rehearsed theatrics, just the truth. "I'm not here to outshine Pierce and Company in profit," she said, her voice even. "I'm here to offer a different vision, one where community thrives alongside commerce." Then she laid it out. The Rosalie Haven, a luxury building with half its units reserved for single mothers and families in transition, on-site daycare, flexible leases, support programs, the kind of safe, dignified housing Rosalie wished she'd had when she was pregnant and homeless. Rachel stepped in next, presenting the financial viability of the project. Gregory distributed the offer packet, everything prepared down to the last decimal. Carlos glanced through the folder, then looked up. "I have to admit, this is unexpected." Rosalie smiled, steady. "So was my eviction." There was silence. Then Carlos asked, "Why this building, Mrs. Pierce?" A beat passed. Rosalie gently placed a hand on her belly and answered with conviction, "Because I was thrown out of it while carrying this child. Because it once held everything I thought I needed, wealth, security, a future. But all that turned out to be fragile. What I want to build here now is something no one can take away, a foundation for others like me who need a second chance." The room held its breath. Carlos nodded slowly. "We'll step out to discuss. Please give us a few minutes." Outside the conference room, Rosalie paced, each second dragging like an hour. Rachel gave her a subtle thumbs up. Gregory murmured, "No matter what they decide, you've already taken your power back." Then the doors opened. Carlos returned, followed by the rest of the owners. His face was unreadable. "We've decided to accept your offer," he said, voice calm but sure. "It aligns with what this city needs. It honors the heart of the property in a way Pierce and Company didn't." Rosalie blinked, stunned for half a second. Then her face broke into a disbelieving smile. "You'll need to finalize within 72 hours, Carlos added. "We trust you will." Rosalie nodded, her throat tight. "You have my word."
Die Schukans. For the first time in weeks, Rosalie felt wohle. That evening, as snow began to fall, Rosalie returned to Helena's apartment and stood on the balcony, eyes closed. The city buzzed below. Some were out there, Christopher and Vanessa still believed they controlled the story, but Rosalie had written here on chapter not with rage, not with scandal, but with purpose. And brick by brick, floor by floor, she would rebuild not just a building, but a life worthy of her child. Monday morning arrived with a deceptive calm. The winter sun gleamed coldly off glass skyscrapers, and the city moved with its usual RHYTHM horns, hurried footsteps, and the low hum of ambition. But inside the towering office of Pierce & Co., the storm had only just begun. Vanessa Moretti was already dressed for victory. She wore a sharply tailored to perfection, her heels clicking across the marble floor like a warning shot. Her lipstick matched her confidence, bold, unapologetic. Christopher trailed behind her, phone in hand, scrolling through emails. He hadn't slept much the night before. So meeting about Rosalies silence singse here eviction had started to gnaw at him. Il handle the pitch, Vanessa said curtly. You just smile and sing. T stepped into the conference room where the building owners, the Ramirez family, were scheduled to meet them. Vanessa was all poise, all power. She adjusted her blazer, smoothing out imaginary wrinkles. She had played the scheme before, buying out legacy properties, pushing through aggressive deals, charming hesitant sellers. But today, the air was different. The owners sat with calm expressions that didn't match Vanessa's expected energy. There was no coffee offered, no Handshake, just a long pause. Carlos Ramirez spoke first. Thank you for coming, Miss Moretti, Mr. Pierce. Vanessa offered a dazzling smile. Very pleased to finalize the deal today. I have the updated contrasts here. Carlos did strike for them. That won't be necessary. She blinked. Excuse me. We accepted another offer. Silence. Christopher froze, HES as narrowing. What other offer? Carlos exchanged a glance with HES associates. We had hoped for a smooth closing with Pierce and Co, but your last-minute attempts to renegotiate the terms were disappointing. You cut the price by almost 18% and added a clause that shifted all liability onto our family. Vanessa's smile faltered. Tat standard negotiation strategy. Carlos remained stone-faced. Not one we appreciated, especially when another party submitted a full price offer in cash with a better long-term plan for the property. Vanessa's voice dropped an octave, suddenly dangerous. Who? Carlos looked at her without blinking. Rosalie Pierce. The name landed like a slap. Vanessa went still, then burst into incredulous laughter. Rosalie? That pregnant girl? You're joking. Carlos didn't flinch. She submitted an offer backed by committed investors and a fully formed redevelopment plan. Frankly, we were impressed. Vanessa's composure cracked. She turned sharply to Christopher. You said she had nothing left, that she was broke, alone, licking her wounds. Christopher started ahead, HES yardigt. Ho? Vanessa hissed. How could she even know about this deal? Did Simeone on our team leak it? Carlos calmly interjected, it doesn't matter. She knew enough, and she came prepared. Her beat was clean, respectful, and visionary. Vanessa stepped back, her breath shallow, face flushed. No. No, this can't be happening. Christopher finally spoke, HES voice low. Are you sure the deal signed? Carlos nodded. Letter of intent. Closing is scheduled within 72 hours. There is nothing more to discuss. Vanessa exploded. Ten issue. Il drag Rosalie trug litigation hell. She used insider knowledge. She's my husband's wife, it has a conflict of interest. Carlos stot. You're free to do what you like, Miss Moretti, but we cause the boy who treated us with dignity. And frankly, we retired of triads. T were dismissed. Vanessa stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind her. In the hallway, her rage boiled over. This is your fault, she snapped at Christopher. You let her slip through. You said she was weak. Christopher's shoulders tensed. You underestimated her. We both did. Vanessa jabbed a finger at HES chest. I told you to cut her off clean. Instead, you left loose ends, and now she's hanging us with them. She did hang us, he said coldly. She beat us fair and square. To the words stoned Vanessa into silence. Then came the shift, the unraveling all the control Vanessa had wielded for months, the manipulation, the secrets, the dominance over Christopher and the company began to fracture. Christopher no longer looked at her with admiration or desire. He looked at her with clarity and disgust. You said you'd protect my reputation, he murmured. But it's crumbling under your schemes. The board's restless. Investors are whispering. And now Rosalie just made us look like fools. Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper, venomous. You're pathetic. She'll ruin you, Chris. She already has. Christopher did ague. He simply walked away. And Vanessa, left alone in the hallway of a deal she had lost, in the building that had slipped through her manicured fingers, realized something she had never expected. She hadn't just underestimated Rosalie. She had awakened here. Later that afternoon, Rosalie was in Gregory Farnsworth's office, finalizing the next steps of the property transfer, when she heard a commotion in the reception area. She recognized the familiar timbre of Christopher's voice. Within moments, he backed in. Rosalie was momentarily stunned by his presence. She hadn't seen him in person since before her father's heart attack. Christopher's gaze swept over here, taking in her markedly pregnant figure. He blinked, as if the reality of her pregnancy was just now sinking in. Rosalie, he said softly, voice tinged with regret. Can we talk alone? Gregory began to protest, but Rosalie nodded, wanting closure. She stepped into an adjoining conference room with Christopher. They stood in awkward silence for a moment, the tension thick. Finally, Christopher cleared his throat. You caught me by surprise. Booing that building was bold. Rosalie folded her arms protectively over her belly, summoning her resolve. You left me no quase. You cut me out of our home, my home. I had to find a new path. Christopher exhaled, his shoulders sagging. I'm sorry. I didn't intend for it to happen that way. Vanessa, she. Rosalie's eyes flashed. Don't you dare blame Vanessa entirely. You were a grown man. You knew what you were doing. You can't rewrite his story now. He lowered his gaze. I know I messed up big time. I made mistakes. Let my ambition blind me. And Vanessa didn't realize how controlling she was until it was too late. He hesitated. Rosalie, about the baby. I want to be in our child's life. Her heart twisted our child. She forced a steady breath. I'm not going to stop you from being a father, but you have to understand, what you did is unforgivable. You abandoned me when I needed you the most.
Christopher flinched. His gaze flicked to her rounded belly. I had my reasons. I felt I couldn't give you the life you deserved. I let Vanessa convince me you'd be better off if you left. Quietly took a settlement. I see now how twisted that is. A wave of anger rose in Rosalie's chest. You destroyed our marriage for reasons you still can't articulate. But let's skip the excuses. Why are you here, Christopher? Really? He took a step closer, voice earnest. I'm losing control of Pierce & Company. Vanessa's orchestrating deals behind my back. The board is furious about the fiasco with the building. We're hemorrhaging good publicity. If the truth comes out, my affair, your eviction, the scandal could be catastrophic for the company. He paused, swallowing. I need to fix this. We need to present a united front. Rosalie studied him for a moment, incredulous. A united front? After you publicly humiliated me and let your mistress throw me out on the street, you expect me to fix your reputation? She let out a harsh laugh. You're delusional. Christopher shook his head, desperation creeping into his tone. I'll do right by you and the baby. I'll transfer assets into your name. We can even work on philanthropic projects together again. Just, please, don't push for a public scandal or a nasty divorce. That's all I ask. Rosalie's eyes burned. She took a deep breath. You're worried about money and reputation, not about me or your child. Don't pretend otherwise. He opened his mouth to protest, but Rosalie held up her hand. Save it. If you truly want to be part of this child's life, we'll arrange custody when the baby is born. As for your company, deal with your own mess. Christopher's face darkened, and he snatched at her arm. You can't just cut me off. We're still married. She yanked free. We won't be for long. I'm filing for divorce." The words struck them both like thunder. He seemed about to say more, but the sight of her unyielding expression stopped him. With a defeated slump of his shoulders, Christopher turned and left the conference room. Rosalie stood there, tears welling in her eyes, but her resolve unbroken. The subsequent weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Rosalie moved forward with the purchase, finalizing her ownership of the building. True to her promise, she and her team began crafting a plan to renovate the interiors, ensuring a portion would remain profitable while simultaneously offering affordable units for single mothers. Rachel Henderson brought in a team of architects and designers, one of which was Helena, Rosalie's dear friend, who leapt at the chance to lead on the interior transformations. Meanwhile, news of Rosalie's purchase trickled through the city's real estate grapevine, morphing into a sensational rumor. Christopher Pierce's pregnant wife snatches building from Pierce and Company. The tabloids smelled blood. Vanessa Moretti attempted damage control, painting Rosalie as an opportunist who stole insider information. But many reporters, especially those with philanthropic leanings, latched onto Rosalie's inspiring narrative, a scorned wife forging a path of empowerment, turning heartbreak into a community-focused victory. Gregory Farnsworth deftly handled Rosalie's legal matters, initiating divorce proceedings. Though Christopher tried to stall or negotiate for a more amicable arrangement, the process marched on. Public sympathy heavily favored Rosalie, especially when details of her eviction surfaced in the press. More than once, paparazzi hounded her, seeking a statement on how she felt about Vanessa's role. Rosalie, ever poised, refused to sling mud in public. She would simply say, "My focus is on the future, mine and my child's." Inside the new building, soon to be rebranded the Rosalie Haven, at Rachel's suggestion, construction crews began the first round of renovations. Rosalie would often walk the empty halls, hard hat perched atop her cascading hair, imagining the bustling families that would soon fill these corridors. She thought of her unborn child, too, and how she wanted to create a world of safety and possibility for them. One afternoon, as she was overseeing the conversion of an unused storage space into a childcare center, she felt a gentle kick in her belly, her baby's first pronounced movement. Tears of joy blurred her vision. "Everything will be okay," she whispered to herself. "We're building our new home here, in more ways than one." As Rosalie's fortunes rose, Vanessa's grip on Pierce and Company loosened. Disgruntled board members, sensing the public's growing backlash, demanded Christopher distance himself from Vanessa. Key investors threatened to withdraw if the scandal continued to tarnish the company's image. Although Christopher tried to salvage the relationship with Vanessa, perhaps out of guilt or habit, the board effectively forced her resignation to stem the damage. Embittered and scorned, Vanessa lashed out one final time. She leaked sensitive information about Christopher's finances, claiming he manipulated philanthropic funds for personal gains. However, a swift audit proved her allegations were either exaggerated or false. Pierce and Company, reeling from the drama, parted ways with Vanessa for good. In a final blow, Christopher realized too late that Vanessa had siphoned a not insignificant sum from the company during her tenure. She vanished into Europe, rumored to be starting anew under yet another identity. The day Christopher discovered Vanessa's betrayal, he sought out Rosalie. He showed up at the Rosalie Haven, looking haggard, as though he hadn't slept in days. Rosalie was on site, reviewing paint samples with Helena. As soon as she noticed Christopher's disheveled state, her first instinct was concern, but she quickly remembered all he had done. He confessed everything: Vanessa's theft, the board's demands, his regrets. "I lost sight of who I was," he murmured, voice thick with sorrow. "I hurt the one person who ever truly cared for me, and I sacrificed our marriage for a mirage." Rosalie, though moved by his honesty, remained firm. "I'm sorry you had to learn the hard way, Christopher, but you did this. You let Vanessa in. I can't fix it for you." He looked around at the construction site, noticing the bright new signage reading, "The Rosalie Haven," in large gold letters. "You've done well, Rosie. I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "If there's any chance for us," Rosalie gave a sad smile, "that door is closed. I'll never forget the way you treated me, especially during my pregnancy. We'll figure out co-parenting, but our marriage, it's over." Resigned, Christopher nodded, tears brimming. Rosalie let him out, staying calm. When he was gone, Helena gently touched Rosalie's shoulder. You all right, Rosalie? Inhaled. Exhaled. Yes, for the first time, I actually am. Months flew by. Rosalie's pregnancy progressed healthily, albeit with the typical aches and anxieties of impending motherhood. Construction at the Rosalie Haven neared completion. The press, initially fixated on the scandal, turned their attention to Rosalie's philanthropic mission. Curious onlookers awaited the building's grand opening, a new model for real estate that balanced luxury amenities with community uplift. Rachel Henderson beamed at the progress. We're turning heads in the industry, she remarked to Rosalie during a walkthrough. Most real estate moguls think only about profit margins. Your proving compassion can be part of a successful business strategy. Rosalie offered a grateful smile. This was always my dream. Doing real good in the world, not just living in some ivory tower. Christopher and I once shared that goal, but I guess we parted ways somewhere along the line. At 8 months pregnant, Rosalie still directed finishing touches with unstoppable vigor, from the sleek, modern lobby to the vibrant children's play area. She ensured the top floors housed premium apartments, some already pre-leased for substantial rents, while the middle floors were set aside for moderate-income families. The lower floors boasted community rooms, co-working spaces for single parents, and supportive services. It was a place designed to help families flourish. On a sunny day in early summer, the Rosalie Haven had its ribbon-cutting ceremony. Media outlets arrived in droves, capturing the powerful image of Rosalie, glowing with maternal pride, cutting the ribbon while cameras flashed. Rachel Henderson gave a stirring speech about empowerment and second chances, praising Rosalie's vision. Gregory Farnsworth was there, smiling like a proud father figure. Helena was at Rosalie's side, tears glistening at the success of their shared effort. To everyone's surprise, Christopher also showed up, standing quietly in the back. He made no attempt to overshadow the event, nor did he approach the stage. Rosalie noticed him and offered a polite nod. He returned it, understanding that any public display of regret would mar the day's positivity. He simply witnessed the fruit of Rosalie's labors, perhaps coming to terms with what he had lost. As the ceremony ended, families began touring their future homes. Smiles and laughter filled the hallways. Rosalie felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She stroked her baby bump, tears of happiness welling up. For the first time in a long while, she felt complete, on her own terms. Though the main conflict seemed resolved, life had one more twist in store for Rosalie. Just a week after the grand opening, while sorting through old letters in Helena's condo, Rosalie came across a vintage document. It was a hand-signed letter from her late grandfather, an entrepreneur she barely remembered. In it, he revealed that he had once made an investment in a trust specifically for Rosalie's future. The letter mentioned a small but valuable portfolio of stocks and properties. The trust, never fully claimed, had grown over the years, enough to secure Rosalie's personal financial freedom, even if the Rosalie Haven encountered difficulties. Stunned, she immediately contacted the trustee, who confirmed the authenticity of the letter. She had unwittingly stumbled upon a safety net that ensured her philanthropic vision could expand. That means you're truly independent, Helena gushed, hugging Rosalie. You'll never need Christopher's money or anyone else's again. Rosalie smiled, tears forming. It's amazing. I'll use it wisely. Expand the Rosalie Haven concept, maybe open more like it in other cities. Despite the heartbreak, betrayals, and endless drama, Rosalie's future sparkled with promise, carrying forward her family's legacy in a way that served the greater good. She silently thanked her grandfather for this hidden blessing, feeling connected to her roots in a new, profound way. At 9 months pregnant, Rosalie gave birth to a beautiful baby boy named Daniel, after her father. Christopher, informed of her labor, arrived at the hospital. Though Rosalie allowed him to see his newborn son, she kept a respectful emotional distance. She had no intention of rekindling their marriage, but in those tender hospital moments, she acknowledged Christopher's role as Daniel's father. They agreed to co-parent respectfully, each forging new paths in life. Once recovered, Rosalie moved into a comfortable apartment in the Rosalie Haven. She wanted to live among the very community she had helped create. She greeted her neighbors daily, forging genuine connections with the families who found solace and hope in the building. The hallways, once cold and empty, now echoed with the laughter of children. The rooftop lounge overlooked a sunlit skyline, a reminder that every sunrise brought new possibilities. In the months that followed, Rosalie blossomed as a mother and an entrepreneur. She initiated support groups for single parents, mental health workshops, and financial literacy classes. True to her philanthropic roots, she leveraged her connections with people like Rachel Henderson and even philanthropic icons she'd once met alongside Christopher, like Barbara Corcoran, who commended her personally for her bold innovation in real estate. As for Christopher, rumors swirled that he was restructuring Pierce and Company. His public apologies and renewed commitment to charitable projects seemed genuine. But Rosalie no longer placed her happiness in his hands. Vanessa Moretti's name became a cautionary tale whispered among business insiders, as someone who soared too close to the sun on borrowed wings. She faded from public view, overshadowed by the unstoppable tide of Rosalie's triumph. Though the divorce was finalized quietly, it was not an end tinged with bitterness. Rosalie found closure. She recognized that sometimes love stories transform, and that heartbreak can be a catalyst for incredible growth. She would always mourn the dream she once shared with Christopher, but she would not dwell on the past. On Daniel's first birthday, Rosalie hosted a small gathering on the rooftop garden of the Rosalie Haven. Close friends, mentors, building residents, and philanthropic supporters came together. They celebrated not just Daniel's life, but also the enduring power of resilience. As Rosalie cradled her son, letting him watch the city lights sparkle below, she reflected on the journey, how a scorned, pregnant wife, thrown out by a ruthless mistress, could rise stronger than ever before. Above all, she understood this truth. Wealth and status mean little without compassion and integrity. In forging her future, Rosalie had redefined what it meant to be wealthy, not in terms of money alone, but in community, purpose, and the unwavering courage to stand tall in the face of adversity. She had taken the heartbreak inflicted upon her, spun it into gold, and bought not just a building, but her own destiny. In this incredible tale of heartbreak and triumph, Rosalie Pierce transformed a devastating eviction into a beacon of hope. By marshaling her wits, compassion, and strategic alliances, she outmaneuvered a powerful husband and his ruthless mistress, ultimately buying the very building from which she was cast out. Along the way, she rediscovered her own resilience, forged a path toward independence, and created a nurturing haven for families in need. Rosalie's story reminds us all that betrayal and adversity can be the very catalysts that spark extraordinary change. Hers is a living testimony to courage, vision, and the power of believing in one's dreams, even when the odds seem impossible. If you found inspiration, heartbreak, and hope in this dramatic journey, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's spread Rosalie's message far and wide, reminding everyone that from every dark chapter, a new dawn can rise.